The Jakor arena was never silent. Even in the dead of night, the echoes of past battles seemed to cling to its jagged walls, screams, roars, the wet sound of tearing flesh. The air smelled of dust, blood, and something acrid that stung the eyes of anyone not born to the desert wastes. Krith Vartor, High Commander of the Velith Legion, sat in the observation dais with 3 other dignitaries, all adorned in ceremonial armor. His multifaceted eyes gleamed with anticipation. "This is the final trial before the treaty is signed," Krith said, his voice clicking like snapping bones. "If the human survives, their species earns the right to join the High Covenant. If they fail, Earth will be deemed too weak to defend itself." Beside him, Ambassador Velar of the Uinkari shifted uncomfortably in his silken wrappings. "I have studied their biology. The human has no claws, no fangs. Their skin is soft. Their strength, while passable, is nothing compared to the Apexian behemoth." In the pit below, the human Sergeant Daniel Voss was a stark contrast to the towering predator pacing in the shadows. Voss was lean, sweat already darkening his shirt in the desert heat. The predator, a Kroth Malgar, stood twice his height, muscles rippling under scale and sinew. Its maw could crush bone to powder. The announcer's voice boomed through the arena. "Combatants ready." From the alien dignitary's perspective, this was not a fight. It was an execution. The gates clanged open, and the Kroth lunged forward with terrifying speed, claws extended. Gasps and chitters of excitement rolled through the stands as Voss barely sidestepped the first strike. Dust exploded around them. To the aliens, humans were curious, adaptable, yes, but fundamentally prey. No human could stand toe-to-toe with an apex predator from Kroth Prime and live. But Voss didn't move like prey. He moved like someone who had decided he was going to kill this thing. The Kroth swiped again, its claws slicing a furrow into the packed earth where Voss had stood an instant before. Instead of retreating, the human stepped into the predator's reach. One hand shot up, fingers latching onto the beast's forearm like an iron vice. The alien leaders leaned forward. "Is he holding it back?" Velar whispered in disbelief. The Kroth roared, twisting to fling the human away. But Voss didn't let go. With a sudden, explosive motion, he pulled. There was a sound like wet canvas tearing, followed by a shriek that made even the hardened Jakor guards flinch. The Kroth's arm dangled uselessly, the tendons severed. The arena went silent. Krith's mandibles clicked in astonishment. Impossible. The tensile strength of Kroth ligaments. Voss didn't wait for the predator to recover. He ducked under a snapping jaw, slammed his elbow into the creature's throat, and drove it backward. The crowd erupted into chaotic noise, shouts, howls, chittering disbelief. From the viewing dais, it no longer looked like an execution. It looked like a hunt. Only the human was the predator now. Voss's breathing was steady, eyes locked on the Kroth like a wolf sizing up wounded prey. Blood, its blood dripped from his forearms. "Your champion is different," Velar muttered. Krith's gaze didn't leave the pit. "No, he is dangerous." The Kroth Malgar staggered back, its wounded limb trembling under its own weight. Its pupils, slitted like shards of obsidian, dilated wide, locked on the human who had just done what no prey animal had ever managed. The crowd sensed it before the Kroth did. The shift, the inversion. Some alien spectators shrank back from the railing. Others hissed in disbelief. A few warriors who understood the primal language of battle fell silent, their spines tingling. Voss circled slowly, his boots crunching over the arena's gravel. His movements weren't panicked. They were deliberate, surgical. He knew exactly where to place his feet, how to keep the Kroth's good arm from lining up for a killing blow. "This is not possible," Velar whispered in the viewing dais. "The Kroth are apex-level hunters. Their neuromuscular efficiency doesn't matter," Krith cut in, his mandibles tight. "Not if the prey stops running." Below them, the Kroth snarled and lunged again. But this time it was slower, the power in its strike dulled by pain and hesitation. Voss stepped sideways, caught the creature's wrist, and slammed his shoulder into its elbow joint with a brutal snap. The joint dislocated with an audible pop. The roar that followed was deafening. The predator stumbled, half-blind with pain. The human's voice cut through the noise. "Hurts, doesn't it?" The aliens didn't understand the words, but they understood the tone. Cold, taunting, predatory. The Kroth, sensing its advantage slipping, went for a final all-or-nothing strike. A lunge to tear out the human's throat. But Voss moved into the attack, letting the creature's momentum carry it forward. He hooked an arm around its massive neck, locking his hands together in a chokehold. To the dignitaries it was madness. No species choked a Kroth. Their throats were protected by bone plates, evolved precisely to prevent such a tactic from working. And yet, Voss adjusted his grip, digging his forearm into the gap between plates. He wrenched backward, muscles in his shoulders and back flaring with raw power. The Kroth thrashed, claws gouging furrows in the dirt, but the human's grip only tightened. Its movements became frantic, desperate. The predator's talons no longer swiped to kill, they clawed to escape. "That thing," one of the alien guards muttered under his breath. "It's afraid." Voss felt the shift in the creature's body, how its once fluid strikes had become jerky, uncoordinated. How its strength was no longer aimed at domination, but at survival. He let go, stepping back just enough to let it think it had broken free. Then he struck. He drove his knee up into the creature's midsection. Bone cracked. The Kroth doubled over with a sound that was almost human in its pain. The stands erupted into a cacophony. Some cheering, others screaming, some unable to process what they were seeing. Up in the dais, Wheeler spoke in a voice tinged with unease. "If this is the strength of one human, what would an army be?" Krith did not answer. His compound eyes remained locked on the arena floor, watching as Voss advanced on the Kroth with the slow inevitability of a predator closing in for the kill. The human wasn't breathing hard. He wasn't smiling. There was no joy in his face, only focus, as if every fiber of his being had been condensed into a single purpose: end the threat. And for the first time in recorded Jakor history, the Kroth Malgar took a step back. The Kroth Malgar's retreat was instinctual, primal, an admission that it had met something it could not overpower. In the stands, the noise swelled to a fever pitch. Some screamed for the Kroth to recover, others for the human to finish it. But Voss heard none of it. His heartbeat was steady, his mind cold and clear. The fight was no longer about survival, it was about finality. The Kroth lunged again, but the desperation in the movement was obvious. Voss sidestepped, caught its wrist with one hand, and in a single brutal motion wrenched the limb until the bones shattered under his grip. The sound, a sickening wet crack, echoed through the arena. The predator howled, staggering backward on trembling legs. Blood poured from its torn muscles. From the observation dais, Ambassador Wheeler's voice was thin. "This is not just strength. This is control, precision. He is dismantling it." Krith didn't reply. His gaze was fixed on the human's posture, his stance, the way every motion was calculated for maximum efficiency. "He's not just killing it," Krith said slowly. "He's breaking its will." The Kroth, wounded and desperate, lashed out one final time with its massive jaws. Voss didn't flinch. He stepped inside the arc of the bite, gripped the upper jaw with one hand and the lower with the other, and pulled. The crowd froze. The muscles in Voss's arms and shoulders rippled as the tendons in the Kroth's neck strained and tore. With a guttural roar of effort, the human ripped the predator's jaws apart. Bones splintered, cartilage snapped. Blood and saliva sprayed the dirt. The Kroth collapsed, twitching, its lifeblood soaking into the sand. Its once terrifying roar faded to a wet, rattling gasp before it went still. Silence fell over the arena. Every alien present felt it, the shift in the air, the ancient reversal of roles. Prey had become predator. Predator had become corpse. Voss let the jaws fall from his grip. His chest rose and fell slowly. He turned his back on the body without a second glance, as if the act of killing it had been no more remarkable than squashing an insect. The announcer, voice trembling, declared the human the victor. In the dais, Wheeler's breathing was uneven. We've underestimated them. Gravely, one of the other dignitaries, a reptilian Sorin warlord, leaned forward. If one human can do this, imagine 10, 100. Kritha's mandibles clicked in thought. Or 1,000. He looked down at Voss, who now stood alone in the pit, the alien sun casting a long shadow across the sand. This was no mere warrior. This was a warning. The council chamber above the arena was sealed now, soundproofed from the lingering noise of the crowd below. The 4 alien dignitaries sat around a curved obsidian table, the air thick with tension. A hollow image of Sergeant Daniel Voss hung in the center, frozen mid-fight, his arms locked around the Krotha's neck in that impossible chokehold. This cannot be allowed to stand, hissed the Sorin warlord, scales shifting uneasily. A primitive species should not possess that level of lethality. Wheeler's silken wrappings rustled as he leaned forward. You speak as though it is a weapon they were given. It is not. It is what they are. Kritha's compound eyes gleamed in the dim light. Exactly. That is why they are dangerous. No genetic augmentation. No cybernetic reinforcement. Just evolution. Whatever world forged them, it is no place for the faint of heart. Wheeler gave a thin, humorless chuckle. Earth is classified as a death world for a reason. Their planet breeds survivors, not dependents. I suspect this one Voss isn't even exceptional among his kind. That comment silenced the room for a moment. The implication was too large to ignore. The Sorin warlord leaned back, tail lashing. Then the question becomes, do we bring them into the Covenant? Or do we ensure they never rise? Krith tapped one claw against the table. Destroying them outright would be costly. Deathworld species do not go quietly. And if even a handful survived, the vengeance they'd bring could be catastrophic. Wheeler nodded slowly. Then perhaps we contain them, integrate them into the Covenant under strict oversight. Keep them busy. Keep them watched. The others exchanged uneasy glances. The strategy was sound on paper, but deep down they knew the truth. Watching humans was not the same as controlling them. Finally, Krith spoke again. What happened today will spread. The footage of a human tearing apart a Kroth with his bare hands will ripple through the galaxy. Some will see it as a threat. Others, as hope. Wheeler's eyes narrowed. Hope for what? Kritha's mandibles clicked slowly. For an end to fear. Many species live under the shadow of apex predators in their own systems. They will see in humans a weapon that can be pointed away from them. The Sorin warlord growled low. A weapon is only safe when you hold it. The moment it slips free, it becomes your executioner. Wheeler finished grimly. They all looked once more at the frozen hollow of Voss. His face was expressionless, his eyes cold and focused, as though the Kroth had been just another obstacle to remove. Finally, Krith broke the silence. We will vote at dawn. Until then, keep him under guard. And make certain, his voice dropped to a near whisper, that none of the guards provoke him. The holding chamber was quiet, its walls smooth and seamless, designed to prevent escape. To most species, it was a place that inspired obedience. Daniel Voss sat on the bench with his hands clasped loosely in front of him. 2 Jakor guards stood at the door, both heavily armed, both very aware of what they'd seen in the arena. Neither wanted to be the one to open the door when the dignitaries arrived. It slid open anyway. Krith Vartor entered first, his armor gleaming. Wheeler followed, his silken wrappings pristine despite the dust of the arena. The Sorin warlord and a pale, willowy dignitary from the Kevran collective came last. They arranged themselves across from Voss, the faint hum of the energy field behind them sealing the chamber. For a long moment no one spoke. They simply looked at him, the human who had torn apart an apex predator with nothing but his body. Finally, Kritha's voice clicked through the silence. You were given an impossible trial. You succeeded. Do you understand what that means? Voss's eyes flicked up to meet his. I understand it means you thought I'd die. Wheeler shifted uncomfortably. The test was necessary. The Crothmalgar has killed every other candidate species we've tested. Then maybe your test was wrong, Voss said flatly. The Sorin warlord's tail lashed. It was not wrong. You are simply exceptional. Voss's mouth twitched in the barest hint of a smile. I'm not exceptional where I come from. That made them hesitate. The implication landed like a weight in the room. Voss leaned forward, his voice low and steady. You've all been talking about whether to let humans in or keep us out, or make sure we never get strong enough to challenge you. I can save you some time. You can't stop us from getting stronger. It's what we do. Every threat, every challenge, we adapt, we overcome, we get tougher. You put one of your worst predators in front of me, and I walked out breathing. Next time, I'll be faster. Meaner. The Kevran dignitary's translucent fingers trembled slightly. And if the Covenant were to turn against your species? Voss's eyes hardened. Then you'd better make sure you kill every last one of us. Because if you don't, we'll come back. And you won't like what that looks like. Silence pressed down on the room, heavy and absolute. The guards at the door kept their gazes fixed on the floor, as though afraid to meet the human's eyes. Finally, Krith rose. You will address the council tomorrow. I suspect they will vote to admit your people into the Covenant. Voss stood as well, not in challenge, but with the quiet certainty of someone who knew the decision had already been made the moment the Croth hit the ground. Good, he said, because we're not here to be anyone's prey. Krith's mandibles clicked in something that might have been respect or wariness. No, I suppose you are not. As the dignitaries filed out, Wheeler glanced back one last time at the human. For a fleeting moment he saw not a warrior, not a killer, but something far more dangerous. A survivor. And survivors, Wheeler knew, were the hardest enemy to defeat.